The house is quiet tonight. Too quiet. You sit in the living room, the lamplight casting long shadows across the floor. Your eyes drift to a photograph on the wall. Your son, maybe 8 years old, holding a baseball bat almost bigger than his body. His smile is wide, proud. He had just hit his first home run at Little League. You remember that day. You remember standing in the bleachers, clapping. You remember walking over and saying, "Good hit." But tonight, something is missing from that memory. Something hollow sits right at the center of it. Something you have been carrying for 27 years without ever giving it a name. 3 words you never said. I love you. You told yourself fathers didn't need to say it. Your own father never did. Love was supposed to be understood, hidden inside things like rent paid on time, long hours at work, and the kind of silent sacrifices nobody sees, but everyone benefits from. That was the language you were handed. Quiet, practical, unspoken. And you passed it down the only way you knew how, without ever questioning whether the person receiving it could actually read it. But tonight, something feels very different. Because your son is no longer 8 years old. He's 27, and he's sitting in a hospital room 2 floors above you. You remember the day he was born like it was this morning. The doctor placed him in your arms, tiny fingers, impossibly soft skin, eyes barely open, searching. You felt something that day. Something overwhelming and terrifying and beautiful all at once. A strange collision of fear and pride that you had never felt before and haven't felt since. You stood there holding this small new person, and for the first time in your life, you understood what it meant to have something to lose. You wanted to say it right there. Standing in that delivery room, heart pounding, this small human breathing against your chest. I love you, son. But instead, you turned to the nurse and said, take care of him. Because you didn't know how to say the other thing. No one had ever modeled it for you. No one had ever shown you that a man could say those words and still be strong. When he was 5, he ran toward you at the door every single evening. Dad, Dad, look what I made. A drawing, a paper airplane, sometimes just a rock from the backyard he thought looked cool. His whole face lit up, waiting for your reaction. Completely open, completely certain that you cared. You always nodded. That's good. Then, almost immediately, did you finish your homework? You thought you were teaching discipline, structure, responsibility. He thought you weren't interested. And somewhere between those 2 truths, the gap between you quietly began to grow. When he was 10, he wiped out on his bike on the driveway. His knee was bleeding through his jeans. He bit his lip hard, trying not to cry, because he saw you watching from the porch. He already knew by 10 years old what kind of reactions were safe to show you. You walked over. You cleaned the wound carefully. Watch where you're going next time, you said. What you wanted to say, what was pressing hard against the inside of your chest, was something completely different. It hurts me to see you hurt. I cannot stand watching you be in pain. But the words stayed locked inside, the way they always did. The teenage years were harder, quieter in a different way, not peaceful, but distant, like 2 people living under the same roof who had stopped speaking the same language. He stopped running to the door, stopped showing you things he made, stopped talking much at dinner. You blamed the phone, social media, his friends, everything except the one thing worth actually examining. He had simply learned your language. Silence. And he had become fluent in it. Then came the evening he sat across from you at the kitchen table and told you about his college acceptance. I got into engineering at State. You nodded. Took a sip of your coffee. Good. That's a solid path. Inside, you felt something enormous. Pride big enough to fill the entire room. You wanted to call everyone you knew. Your brother, your co-workers, the neighbors down the street. But to him, sitting across that table, watching your face carefully for something more, it sounded like approval. not love. And there is a world of difference between the two. Approval says, you met the standard. Love says, you were always enough, standard or not. He heard the first one. He spent years quietly waiting for the second. Years moved forward the way years do, faster than you expected, slower than you deserved. You covered his tuition, you worked overtime and never mentioned it. You helped him move into his first apartment without being asked. You showed up every single time it mattered. In your mind, this was love, expressed through responsibility, through sacrifice, through the hard, unglamorous, invisible work of keeping everything standing. And you weren't wrong about that, but love that is never spoken can feel invisible to the person receiving it. And invisible love, no matter how real, is dangerously easy to misunderstand. The real distance arrived when he moved across the country for work. Phone calls became short, predictable, almost scripted. How are you? Good. Work okay? Yeah, it's fine. All right then. 2 minutes. Hanging up. Both of you sitting with the phone in your hand afterward, carrying everything you actually wanted to say, but didn't know how to begin. You wanted to ask, are you happy out there? Are you taking care of yourself? Do you have people around you who actually care about you? He wanted to ask, are you proud of me, Dad? Not of what I've accomplished, of me? Do you think about me when I'm not around? Did I turn out the way you hoped? Neither of you asked, because neither of you knew how to start. Tonight, the doctor used a word you hate. Complications. Your son had collapsed at work. Stress. Exhaustion. Something with his heart. They are still running tests on. They say he will recover. They say he is stable. They say the numbers are trending in the right direction. But when you first heard the news, when your phone rang and that word collapsed hit you, something inside you cracked open. Not broke, cracked open. Like something sealed shut for a very long time finally giving way under its own weight. Because for the first time in 27 years, a thought arrived that scared you more than any medical report ever could. What if he never actually knew? What if all those tuition payments, all those silent overtime hours, all those years of showing up without ever explaining why? What if he quietly read all of it as nothing more than obligation? What if the one thing he needed to hear the most was the one thing you could never bring yourself to say? You replay every moment now, sitting alone in this waiting room under cold fluorescent lights. The Little League home run. The bleeding knee on the driveway. The kitchen table conversation with the untouched coffee. The airport goodbye where you shook his hand instead of pulling him close, because somehow a handshake felt safer than the alternative. So many moments, so many open doors you chose to walk past. And every time you told yourself the same lie, there is time. He knows. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe when the moment feels right. But later is a dangerous promise. Because one day, without any warning at all, later becomes a room you no longer have the key to enter. The nurse finally calls your name. You can see him now. Your legs feel heavier than they should as you stand. The hallway stretches in front of you, long and too bright. Each step echoes on the tile floor in a way that feels too loud for a place this quiet. Your mind starts rehearsing the sentence. You whisper it under your breath, barely audible, like a man practicing a speech he should have given 20 years ago. I love you, son. The words feel strange in your mouth, almost foreign, like a language you were always capable of speaking but spent your whole life convincing yourself you weren't. You reach the door. You push it open slowly. Machines beep softly. The room is dim and warm. Your son is awake, propped up against the pillow, an IV line running from his arm. Older now. Stubble on his jaw. Tired eyes that have seen more than you probably know. For a moment, neither of you speaks. Just like always. But tonight the silence feels different. It has weight. It presses against your chest like something that needs to finally be moved. He looks at you and gives a weak, familiar smile. The same smile from the photograph on the wall back home. Still his, after all this time. "Hey, Dad." You pull the chair close and sit down beside him. Your throat tightens in a way you haven't felt since you were a young man yourself. Your entire life as a father moves through your mind in one breathless moment. Every drive to practice, every 2-minute phone call, every time you chose silence because it was the only thing you knew. Every moment you told yourself he understood, every moment you hoped he did. And the one thing you never said, your voice breaks before the sentence is even finished. "I love you, son." The room becomes completely still. For one terrible second, you are afraid it is too late, that the words are too old, too foreign, too far past their time to mean anything now. Then something happens that you did not expect. Your son's eyes fill with tears. He laughs, soft, exhausted, overwhelmed. And then he says something that breaks your heart and repairs it in the same breath. "I know, Dad, because sometimes love survives even when it is never spoken. It survives in tuition payments and late nights and wounds carefully cleaned. It lives inside every silent sacrifice, every overtime hour, every time you showed up without being asked. But hearing it, even just once, even after 27 years of silence, changes something that cannot be changed any other way." If you are watching this right now and there is someone in your life who deserves to hear those 3 words, do not wait for a hospital room to give you the courage. Do not wait for a crisis to make the words feel urgent enough. Do not wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow has a quiet way of becoming a door you no longer get to open. Say it today. Say it tonight. Put down whatever is in your hand and say it. Because love that is felt is powerful, but love that is spoken is unforgettable.